Well, welcome to Wild Goose Adventures. Today I want to have a look at the human spirit. I want to show you some examples of the human spirit that inspire you about their innovation, about their courage and just their sheer determination. The first bit of this adventure begins on the Mount Perry to Gingin Road, about 200 kilometres west of Bundaberg, and I want to show you the Bulboonda Tunnel. Now the Bulboonda Tunnel is 192 metres of unstructured tunnel. It took about 12 months to build and it was all hand dug. There was no such thing as excavators and tunnel making equipment back then. It was all just dug by hand. Let's go and check it out. Now, there's a couple of things that immediately strike you about the Bulboonda Tunnel. The first one is this rock and amongst this beautiful scenery. Now it was originally dug out to house a railway that came through here. In the end it's just been cars and a little bit of recent history. During the floods in 2015 all of the lovely council roads had been washed out, and so this was the only access between Mount Perry and Gingin. When you come and have a look here, this rock, it's solid. It's really hard rock. It's like I couldn't imagine digging it. All of this was dug by people with pickaxes and shovels and hammers, and they just dug it all by hand, all 192 metres. That just seems an incredible feat to me of mankind and how people, once they're committed to doing it, that they could just dig all of this. 192 metres done in 12 months. My hat's off, I certainly wouldn't want to do it. The second part of it, and I'm not sure if you can hear behind me, are the bats. The bats have taken up home in here. Let's go and have a drive through and check it out. Well, how are those bats? What an amazing little tunnel. Might not seem much now, but I can't get over how they dug it. And the bats, they're incredible. What a beautiful home for them. Now it's time to head off to Gayndah and talk trains. Queensland Railways commissioned the Bulboonda Tunnel in the late 1880s. In 1900 they elevated William Pagan to become their chief engineer, and he was briefed specifically to build a railway between Brisbane, covering the food bowls of southeast Queensland all the way out to Gayndah. Now the short story for that is 5 of the bridges he built have heritage listed, noted for their creativity and their ingenuity in building. And Pagan himself was recognised for his contribution in Queensland's history. Now in 1900, with the recession in full swing, the banks had foreclosed everything and gone back to England, and Australia was facing a severe recession. Part of Pagan's problem was twofold. One was that there was not a lot of money around to be able to build these bridges. What he did was pretty incredible, how he got around those problems. He'd already built the bridge around near Toowoomba, so we're going to have a look at 3 bridges he'd built here looking in the North Burnett. The first one is Deepwater Creek. Now Deepwater Creek had to span 24 metres, which is longer than any concrete structure had ever been built previously. And he did that by creating one large arch with 2 smaller arches on either side. He then introduced what was called as day labour. So rather than try and get a gang that did all the bridges, he would gather the locals that were unemployed and he would pay them for the day. And by getting them out here, they would work, they would get some money. He would get them to build the scaffolding, and then using the creek, using the natural sand and gravel, he was able to pour the structures in place and make it all happen. Queensland Heritage Australia labelled Pagan as a forward thinker and someone who revolutionised the whole way of making structures. Gayndah is known for its citrus, its oranges, its lemons, and more recently, its limes. It's also home to 3rd generation businessman and history buff, ex-councillor John Mellor. He agreed to come and show me more about Pagan's bridges.
Yeah, we're at the Deep Rocky Creek Bridge, which used to be known as 76.25 mile siding, which meant we're 76.25 miles from Mungar, where the line starts. And this bridge is another different design of Pagan's, and it's the same as Chowie Bridge, where they built a frame with timber, 6B1 it probably was, and then filled it up with their concrete. Built these bridges that didn't have big sides on them. They used to put these double line tracks in the middle, so if there was a derailment it would catch the wheels of the train that was moving that way or that way of the carriage, and it would stop the thing sliding over the side. And all these bridges had a distance on them, because where the lady lived down here, there was where I said before, the 76.25 mile siding. It was, the train used to stop there and pick up a bit of cream, drops and whatever shit they had on board for her, and that was it.
Well, with Chowie Bridge and Deep Rocky Creek Bridge done and dusted, it was time to go and visit perhaps the most iconic bridge of them all. Colloquially known as the Upside Down Harbour Bridge, it certainly showed his flexibility and his ability to be able to work in all different types of materials.
This is the Alderaway Railway Bridge. As you can see from this angle, it's significantly different from what you see underneath. You can't see the trusses. It's built in 1907, and you can see the truss work underneath, and the bridge is slightly curved, which was in the design, and when the trains used to go over, the bridge flattened out. Not a significant amount, but it definitely did, because I've seen it many years ago when we used to get trains up here. First train got to Gayndah in December. The line follows the river and a few mountains around. And the trusses were brought back from the Vertigan River Bridge when it was built, and these were left over. But the railway used to look after it, even after they stopped running trains. They had a gang based in Gayndah which maintained some of the bridges and some of the track, just in case it was ever restarted, but that hasn't operated for a number of years. The bridges still would be usable if we had trains up here, but it's not.
All day, John's been keen to show me something special and unique in his shop. Apparently, it's the last one left in the world. Let's go in and see what he wants to show us.
In the early days in this type of shop, they had a This was in the days before bank cards and MasterCards, and people paid cash, and so people who owned these shops wrote dockets, and there was never much change kept down below. It was all sent up to the central office, and you'd write your docket and send the 2 copies up to the office, put them in the little cup, fold them up with the money, and then put it in here, and then you just send it up to the office like that. I haven't lost me touch, Bob?
No, coming back.
Yeah, not hard enough. But and the girl in the office will keep the bottom docket and send the top docket back with change, and you take it out and give it to count the change out to the customers.
And I believe that sometimes it was a bit of pranking going on.
Well, in my early days, this is back in the 1950s, we'd get a new girl start in the office, and she was all keen, ready to go, so we'd get a frog or a mouse and put it in here and get it in here like this and send it up to the office, and because she'd be keen, she'd grab it. Here's my first docket. And she'll undo it, and the mouse would jump out, or the frog would jump out. There'd be screams and whatnot, but that was like the initiation ceremony in those days.
Well, thanks, John. Really appreciate you showing me around and showing me all the things in your shop, and also Pagan's bridges. One thing I never mentioned was Pagan was also recognised for his aesthetic beauty and his care of the environment way back then when he was building. In those circumstances, I guess you could almost excuse him for just going and saying, well, I got a job done, I got the bridges done. But he really went over and above, and I hope you found that as inspiring as I found him and his beautiful bridges. Also to the Queensland Railway for having the insight to be able to do the Boonboola Tunnel, and also to employ him and go with Pagan as he built those bridges. Well, that's it for Wild Goose Adventures this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're inspired. Please like it if you did. Subscribe, that'll be totally awesome. And until next time, smooth sailing.